Hello everyone, welcome to the 5 Red Lights. My name is Aaron, I'm your host, and the lights are coming on for another episode.
1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and it's go!
Welcome everybody, welcome to today's episode. Today I will be ranking the 10 worst circuits on the 2021 F1 calendar. But before I do, a little bit of admin to whiz through. If you enjoy this video, leave a thumbs up, and please consider hitting the subscribe button on the channel. Would be really helpful. Super kind of you, and I'd really appreciate it. And that is if you want some more F1 content and my opinion. So today I'm ranking all of the 20 F1 circuits on the 2021 calendar, and starting in this episode we're going to start with the 10 worst circuits, starting from 20th to 11th. So how have I done this? So what I've done, I've just gone and taken 5 factors to consider for each circuit and rated them out of 10 and then produced an average. So to start with, the factors are the challenge that the track layout provides the drivers, the quality of the on-track action, its location, and then its distinctive features, and then any historical context within Formula 1. So each circuit will be given a score out of 10 for each of those individual factors, leading to an overall score out of 10. Tracks that have been on the 2021 calendar that have not been raced at with modern F1 cars, not featured before, or simply not had their circuit homologated and announced yet, they're not included on this list. So there's no Zandvoort, there's no Jeddah, and wherever round 3 this season is going to be isn't on there because they haven't announced it yet. The list at the moment has been also created with Monaco, Baku and Montreal included because at the time of writing and recording they're actually still on the calendar, although they are at jeopardy because of the COVID pandemic continuing. So we could easily see them replaced by 2 or 3 other circuits who maybe jumped in last season. But we're going to go with the 20 that we've got at the moment. So no Zandvoort, no Jeddah, and no TBC. So we've got 20 races, or 20 race circuits to go through. And we're going to start with our 10 worst, or my 10 worst to date. And then in the next video that I'll put out will be the top 10. So let's dive on in with number 20. So bringing up the back of the grid on this list is Le Castellet in 20th place. Everyone's least favourite Formula 1 track in France. So its challenge only gets a 3 out of 10. Action, I thought a 3 was probably quite generous actually. You can overtake because the Mistral straight into the chicane does offer an opportunity to overtake, although it's generally a flyby DRS. It's in a nice location, south of France. That's nice. Usually quite warm and sunny, so not really going to get too much in the way of weather playing a part in races. It's not that distinctive really because everything on the outside is red and blue, and there's no gravel, there's no jeopardy there. It doesn't have corners that stand out as famous and scary with a little bit of history behind them. So on that basis, for history, it gets a 5. Obviously we had the Leighton House rolling over in I think it was 1989. It was Gugelmin's Leighton House where he just barrel rolled over Mansell's Ferrari. Not really much to say other than that. I mean, it's okay. Would we miss it? No. Overall score, it's a 4. 19th place goes to Sochi. Everybody loves Sochi, don't they? I'm kidding. No, they don't. It's not the most challenging circuit. The long turn 3 is probably the most difficult corner because of the high G forces and they're sustained for quite a period of time. So it gets a 4 on the challenge. 3 for action because you can't overtake, especially through the final sector. Just puts too much dirty air. The 90-degree corners, they suck. Location, that's pretty cool on the seaside as it goes through the Olympic Park in Sochi where they held the Winter Olympics. It's pretty distinctive because you can tell where it is, but not to the point where you go wow. So there's no real standout corners either, and very little history there in terms of racing. So it only gets a 5 for distinction and 2 for history, for an overall score of 4.2, just edging out the Castellet. 18th place is Abu Dhabi, the Yas Marina circuit, which joined in 2009. It's a nice place to go, isn't it? It's, from people I've spoken to who've been there, it's really good. It's easy access. It's in a lovely place, but it's not really very challenging for the drivers, is it? If you drive around there on the F1 game, it's pretty straightforward. It's long straight, chicane, long straight, 90 degrees, 90 degrees, 90 degrees. You could go and do that at my local Tesco's. So, it's right on my doorstep. Action, you'd think with 2 long straights you'd get lots of overtaking, but it doesn't really happen all that often. It takes a long time for the cars to get within even DRS range. And when they do, you get a little bit of a battle where one goes past the other. If they go past in the first DRS zone, then they can be vulnerable in the second. But then the overheating of tyres, if someone's really struggling with tyres, then they can't fight back. So a 2 for challenge, 2 for action, 8 for the location, 6 for distinctiveness, because it is generally the season finale, so the fireworks are pretty cool, and it starts in the twilight, ends at night. That's pretty cool, I think. History, give it a 4 because some title deciders, but mostly because of what didn't happen. Alonso couldn't pass Petrov, make any progress, and Hamilton couldn't get Rosberg to be overtaken by Vettel or Verstappen, despite his best efforts of driving like a bus. So an overall score for Yas Marina of 4.4. In 17th place is the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya in Spain. So challenge is a 6. It's got some challenging corners. The Camsa corner, the fast right-hander, turn 9, heading down to the back straight, is pretty awesome. I've not been there to see the cars myself, so I imagine if you see them in the flesh, that would be pretty epic. The long turn 3, the right-hander, that's pretty tough because you have to balance the car and you have to be incredibly fit to do that, but then it's completely let down by the chicane in the final sector. That is a Mickey Mouse section and we hate it. So going on from there, the action level only gets a 5. You can overtake down into the chicane turn 1, and you can get a run through turn 3, unless Nico Rosberg's in front of you, in which case he will biff you off the track. So action, it only gets a 5. 6 for location. I mean, it's on the outskirts of Barcelona. Having been to Spain myself, it's a really nice country, and Barcelona's a really lovely city, so that would be pretty cool. I'd definitely go there for that, for a nice weekend away to watch some racing and enjoy some time in the sun, and when we're allowed, obviously. Distinctiveness is pretty distinctive. You can tell where it is, and there's some interesting corners there. History, it gets a 7. It's been on the calendar since 1991, so it's been there longer than I've actually been alive. So it's been around a while. It's a mainstay. We go testing there, so everyone knows about it. And obviously there was that very famous scene between Senna and Mansell where they're literally about this far apart. I can get my figures in the right place. About that far apart. So pretty spectacular racing, and when the weather intervenes, you can get some pretty sensational stuff going on. Overall, it gets a 5.8. So, I mean, it's not the worst track by any stretch of the imagination, but it could definitely do with something different. 16th place goes to Bahrain, the Sakir, or the Bahrain International Circuit in Sakir. Now, a lot of people like Bahrain, and I do too. I think it's a really good circuit, but in the end here, it's kind of average. So its overall is a 6, because it gets a 6 for the challenge. There's some technical corners, but there's a couple of long straights and a hairpin into turn 1. and the tricky braking zone into turn 9 and 10, where they're turning left, and it sharpens up before the back straight. Overall, it's fairly straightforward, so not a huge challenge. It does bring some action. You get some lovely overtaking moves into turn 1, and then you can challenge again or reclaim your position up to turn 4. So 6 for challenge, 7 for action. Its location is only 5. It's in the middle of a desert, which at the time was pretty novel, but now we've got a couple of them, and they're popping up regularly at the moment. It's all that oil in the city. Let's help pay for it. Distinctiveness, it's at night now, which is really cool, and obviously the cars look so much better, but it was originally in the middle of the day, so deducted a point for that. So it gets a 6 for distinctiveness. It's not a flashy circuit, it's there, it does the job. It's not got that much in terms of history. It's only been on the calendar since 2004, but it's had some really interesting races happen since then. Overall, a 6. It does what it says on the tin. It delivers a good race without being thoroughly spectacular and outstanding every single time. In 15th place, then, is the Hungaroring in Hungary. Monaco without the walls, as they say. Challenge is fairly technical. Some tricky corners there you've got to get right and be really, really precise if you want to get a good lap time. So it gets a 6 for that. A 6 for action, because if you go on a contra strategy, a bit like Hamilton did in 2019, you can make the overtake work. But if you're all running the same strategy, tyres are going to be similar age, similar grip levels. You have to work really, really hard to get in a position to pass. So it gets a 6 for action, because there can be some interesting moments without actually seeing the overtake happen. Location, pretty good location, just outside Budapest, in a bit of a bowl as well. So if you're sitting up by the pit straight, you can see most of the circuit, and also at the back of the circuit, it's in like a little bowl valley sort of thing. So you can have a pretty good view from most places on the circuit. Distinctiveness, there's not really many distinctive corners, but the layout itself is pretty unique. It's not shaped like any other circuit. There's the 2 long hairpins to start the lap, and there's the SS section in the mid-sector. History, 7 for that, because it was the first race behind the Iron Curtain in 1986, so it gets a nice 6.4. Alright, closing in then on the top 10, we have 14th place, Baku. Now I was kind of surprised when Baku came out this low, because I really like Baku. I think it's kind of novel, it's different, but in the end it's actually scored the same as Hungary. It gets a 6 for the challenge, because there are some interesting sections, but again, 90-degree corners, going around a street circuit. Obviously there's the barriers, but the track there is generally fairly wide, especially down the main straight and through the first section of the track. You've got the castle section, which is fairly distinctive and challenging, but then you get out the back and it's high speed. Again, still challenging, but nothing that drivers don't come across on a regular basis. Action-wise though, that all adds up to something that can be pretty spectacular. 2017 was pretty cool, 2018 was quite dramatic too, and there's always that air of something could happen, that air of expectancy around the Baku circuit. And the location is really cool too. It's literally running around building blocks, and they're going the speeds they do around Catalonia almost, but they're going past someone's front door, which is crazy. So it gets an 8 for location, a 7 for distinction because of the castle section, only a 3 for history, and I think this is where it lets it down. Obviously it's had some cool races, but it's only been on the calendar a short time, so it drops a few points from there. 6.4 overall for Baku, but again, it's a good race, and surprising that it's down this low. So moving on to 13th place, and it's the Circuit of the Americas, Kota. Pretty challenging circuit, because the first section is pretty high speed, and you have to be pretty accurate with where you're placing your car there, so it gets a 7 for the driver challenge. And also the final sector is pretty technical as well. The little switchback section after the big back straight is pretty cool. I think it was the first race there in 2012 where Button dived down the inside into the sort of triple apex left-hander. Then you've got the long right-hander which kind of mirrors turn 8 at Istanbul. Action, I actually gave this a 9 because there's always something happening. There's always someone going past someone down the back straight. There's always a chance to dive into turn 1 up the hill against someone. If you get it wrong, they come back through, and you can still be side by side as they go down into the right-handed sweep, which is pretty cool. And it looks pretty spectacular because of the undulations. There's always something going on there as well. Location, it's a decent location actually. It's found a home, the American Grand Prix. Which is really good because they've tried so many different places. In the 80s they were racing around car parks of hotels, literally. So, you know, it's not Indianapolis, which would be amazing, but obviously there was the whole 2005 race, and that was a bit of a sham, to be honest. So, Kota is a good second racetrack to have in America, and if it's not Indy, Kota is just fine. Distinctiveness, there's nothing really that stands out because they've kind of copied other corners, haven't they? They've mirrored that first section on Maggots and Beckett's at Silverstone and the S's section, the first sector of Suzuka. Obviously, if you're going to do that, it's not going to be the same. So it's kind of not your own work. So only a 5 for distinctiveness, a 5 for history. Obviously, Hamilton has claimed 2 world championships that racetrack in 2015 and in 2019. But apart from that, you've not really had a whole lot historically going on in terms of, you know, you think back in the first thing that comes to mind was that happened there. So you know, it scores only 5 for that. Overall, it gets a 6.6. Again, a very good track, but maybe let down because it's just a bit new on the calendar. So the top 2 of our worst tracks. 12th place, the Red Bull Ring for me. So 5 for a challenge. It's a pretty simple track. I mean, there's 7 corners, maybe even less than that you actually do in a Formula 1 car. I mean, they say there's turn 2 between the right-hander after the start and then up the hill to turn 3. But I mean, I don't count that as a corner. Although in the qualifying session for the Styrian Grand Prix last season, it definitely became a corner because of the water running down the hill. So not overall a challenging circuit in Austria, and it gets a 6 for action because even though the race in Austria, the first race in Austria last season, the Austrian Grand Prix was pretty action-packed, we did need the help of the safety car. The following week, the Styrian Grand Prix was pretty pedestrian in terms of action, so it kind of balanced itself out. It gets a 6 for that. Location, what a stunning location in the mountains, and the old Österreich must have been absolutely fearsome to be going around mountains like that. It would have just been silly scary. So a 9 for location, a 7 for distinctiveness because of the mountains. Obviously the old Österreich Ring, the heritage from that, and obviously it's been on the calendar quite a lot and off again as well. So historically pretty well known, and obviously the home race for Niki Lauda, Helmut Marko, Gerhard Berger, the lesser mentioned Alexander Wurz. So you know, there's been some Austrian representation in Formula 1 pretty regularly, and they have their own team in Red Bull, so you know, it's fairly well known. Again, does what it says on the tin. It's a good circuit, it delivers a decent race, it's different, it's a short lap, which is always good fun, bunches the field up a little bit closer. 6.8 overall. And in 11th place, the top of the bottom half goes to Albert Park, Melbourne, Australia. Challenge, not really. It's a 5. It's got some technical corners. You've got to get your braking right into turn 3, and a good exit out of the penultimate corner will set you up well for the final corner. And there's obviously the fast left-right chicane in the middle sector. You have to get that right. But overall, it's not the most challenging circuit. It's not the most difficult one to drive. It doesn't always produce good action either, because the cars haven't helped. Back in the days where reliability was a lot more up and down, the opening race of the season was pretty attritional. I mean, it even allowed Mark Webber to score 2 points on debut for Minardi, and they never scored points. So, you think Williams have gone a long time without scoring a point in just over 2 seasons, not even 2 seasons. So they got the point for Kubica, didn't they? Without scoring points on the road, obviously. But Minardi didn't score points for 2, 3, 4 seasons in a row at times. So 2 points for them was huge. So action, not always brilliant at the moment, but I think that's because of the formula that they've got in terms of the aero regs. Hopefully the 2022 ones will change that. Location, having been there myself, it is absolutely amazing. You're in downtown Melbourne, behind you. So where the chicane is, the fast left-right chicane, the middle sector, that's sort of the north part of the track, and behind you, if you're facing the track, that part of the track's in front of you, is all of Melbourne, with its skyscrapers and its tram system, and then directly in front of you is the track, and on the other side is the beach. So pretty cool. It's always warm there, it's always nice, although you can always get 4 seasons in a day in Melbourne. So it's a pretty stunning location. It's pretty distinctive because it's generally the curtain raiser to the season, so everyone's really excited to see some Formula 1 cars on track. And historically, it's been around since 1996, had some cool moments, lots of different winners. You can always get something different at Albert Park, even though at the moment it's not quite giving us so much variety. Mercedes seem to have a stranglehold on pole position there. Red Bull, Sebastian Vettel and Ferrari did put them to a couple of wins with the help of the VSC over 17 and 18. So Albert Park overall gets a 7. And that brings an end to the worst tracks on the 2021 F1 calendar. I want to know which circuit you think is the worst, whether you agree with where I've put certain circuits, and if you were going to score certain tracks out of 10, what would you score them? You don't have to use all the categories, you can if you want. If you're just going to score them overall out of 10, then that is fine. But I want to know what you think. Stick that in the comments section down below. My name's Aaron, this has been the 5 Red Lights, and we've reached the checkered flag on another episode. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.